Okay, Poetry Comprehension. This is just a walkthrough of a new Poetry Comprehension that the booster class will be going through, and I'll just go through exactly how to do Poetry Comprehensions and hopefully get better at them. So, the title here, Yulb by Hayden. So with poetry, the main thing here is to understand the text. That's probably going to get you the biggest step forward compared to the other students, because poems are usually a bit harder to understand than just a normal text. If you understand it, you'll be able to answer the questions quite easily. So what you can do in your previous mocks, if you struggled with some of the poem comprehensions in those, you can go back and try and use this technique. You can label each paragraph like this and then try and summarize it in your own words, and summarize what it means, right? That's a good way to practice your poetry comprehension. We've done, I think, around 4 or 5 over the homeworks and the mocks, so in the summer school, so you can definitely go back and try them. Some of them might be a bit more difficult in terms of like wording and understanding, some of them might be a bit easier, but try and get the whole range and obviously be good at all of them. Okay, so let's read this one. The colour of the waves rolling out to sea, slowly and smoothly as far as the eye can see. Slightly they creep until they are no more, unlike the entrance of the great mighty Thor. Okay, so this is talking about the waves at sea, basically, and how they are very slowly and silently creep out and sort of stop existing, right? Of course, the wave ends, and it says unlike the great mighty Thor, which would be the opposite. Okay, the colour of elephants as they stomp in the dust, bathing themselves though not bathing us, covering their true colour from the outside world, their trunks in the air being whirled and twirled. Okay, so now it's talking about the colour of elephants. So first talk about the colour of waves, now the colour of elephants. They're stomping in the dust, basically covering themselves, or covering their true colour from the outside world, and sort of whirling and twirling their trunks in the air. Okay, the colour of school folders, binders and pens, and forlorn kids locked up in their dens. As the school day comes to a close, kids long for what's just beyond their nose. So now it's talking about the colour of stuff in school, and kids sort of feeling locked up in school and hoping for the day to end. And then the colour of the sky on a hot summer day, birds chirping and coming out to play. But as the day's end draws near, the sky's colour begins to smear into the dark black night that all creatures fear. Alright, now it's talking about the sky, how birds are out on the hot summer's day, and as the day ends, the sky's colour smears and it starts to become black and dark, which all creatures fear. So this whole poem seems to be about colours of different things, right? And it's painting this sort of image of the world around us and the different colours that you see. Okay, what is the poem mainly about? Okay, so the changing colours of nature, the adventures of Thor, the daily life of elephants, or the excitement of school. Now, like we just said, A is the best option there. It seems to be talking about colour in every paragraph. It talks about different forms of colour that you see around the world. Okay, how do waves move in the poem? You can look back at the text here. It says it was moving slowly and smoothly as far as the eye can see. So we've got option B there, slowly and smoothly. According to the poems, how do kids feel at the end of the school day? So we've got here, the school day is coming for a close, and kids long for what's just beyond their nose. Sort of another way of saying that they long for something else, or they're sort of bored, right? You can also see that they feel locked up in school, and obviously they seem to want to leave. So excited to stay longer? Not quite. Nervous about homework? I wouldn't say so. Indifferent to leaving? Again, that isn't really mentioned. What seems to be the case is they're eager to go home. What does the poet say happens to the sky at the end of a hot summer day. So we've got here, the hot summer day is here, and the sky then begins to smear and turn black. So let's see, it becomes stormy, it starts to rain, its colour begins to smear, and that's the best option there, it turns completely blue. Okay, question 5. How does the poet describe the night at the end of the poem? Now, we've got here, the dark black night that all creatures fear. So this is not a happy or peaceful presentation, more of a dark and fearful. So bright and lively, quiet and peaceful, these ones don't match. Question 6. Why do you think the poet compares the waves to the entrance of Thor? Okay, so it basically says up here that the waves are very slow and silent, and that is unlike the mighty entrance of Thor, which would probably be the opposite, very loud and boisterous, right? So let's see what options they've given us. To emphasize the strength of the waves, not quite. To show their quietness, to illustrate their size, or to highlight their speed. Okay, so these ones are talking about the opposite, where it's talking about like the waves being big and fast, whereas this is much more accurate, where it says the waves are quiet, and that is unlike Thor, which is obviously the opposite of that. Okay, what might the colour of waves symbolize in the poem? Just a quick one. Thor is a Norse mythology god. That sort of, yeah. So if you know Thor, you might know him from films and stuff like that. Okay, question 7. What might the colour of waves symbolize in the poem? So what colour were the waves? They were... It doesn't actually say much. It just talks about the colour of waves rolling out to sea, and it calls them the waves slow and smooth, silent basically. So let's see what it says. I think what this is getting us to infer is like what, even though we haven't been told the colour, what would or what might the colour have symbolised if we were told it. So strength and power, I wouldn't say so, because it's talking about quiet and peacefulness, right? So calmness and peacefulness probably makes the most sense. Chaos and disorder, not quite. Sadness and melancholy is a bit closer, but again, I think calmness and peace matches the best if you look at the fact that they are slow, smooth, they're silently creeping away, right? Question 8. Why does the poet say that elephants are covering their true colour? Okay, so we've got here elephants are stomping in the dust, bathing themselves, though not to bathe us. And then it describes them as covering their true colour from the outside world, their trunks in the air being whirled and twirled. So we can assume this is talking about them covering themselves in dust. They're basically covering their true colour, or... yeah, I mean, that's probably the best way to say it. So not to hide from predators, not to pretend they are something they're not, but to show that they're covered in dust and they're covering themselves, or they're covering their true colour, right? So to indicate they're blending in with the environment. Again, not quite. Question 9. How do you think kids feel about school based on the poem? Based on the poem, sorry. So they love being there? Nope. They find it boring? That's what I was leaning towards, because it says they feel locked up and they're forlorn, which means lonely, right? They feel trapped and eager to leave. That is also a good one. They're indifferent. So we're left with B or C here. Now, I would lean towards C, because it says this right here, that the kids feel locked up in their dens, right? So we've actually got that imagery right here. And we've got evidence in the passage for option C rather than option B. Question 10. Why does the poet mention the sky's colour begins to smear? To describe a beautiful sunset, to show the transition from day to night, to indicate a coming storm, or to illustrate the spread of clouds. Now, I'd go with B here. It does say that it goes from a hot summer's day, and as the sky is smearing, it turns into a dark black night. Question 11. What might the dark black night represent in the poem? The end of happiness, the beginning of a new day, the fear of the unknown, comfort of sleep. So it's not comfort, or something positive like the beginning of a new day. We've got two options left. It does say it's a dark night that all creatures fear, right? That's sort of, it's taking over this poem, and it would be, I mean, the end of happiness sort of makes sense. It makes more sense than the other two options, but the fear of the unknown seems to have more evidence in the poem, again, just because we've got this idea that it's a dark black night, right, where you can infer that no one can really see anything, and all creatures are fearing it, right? So fear, where was that? I mean, fear is mentioned directly in the passage, so it's a stronger option here for question 11. Question 12, why does the poet use the word forlorn to describe the kids? Okay, to show that they are happy, to indicate they are lonely and sad, to suggest they are excited, to describe their tiredness. Okay, so if you don't know what forlorn means, you should still be able to cross out C and A, right? Because we already know that they're not happy or excited, right? Now we've got lonely and sad, or describe their tiredness. So both of these, again, are like sort of negative, and if you don't know what it means, it can be hard to decipher what this might entail. So it's probably just a 50-50 coin toss for you if you don't know what it means. But as I explained earlier in the video, forlorn means like lonely, and that would mean option B is the correct answer there. Okay, what does the word forlorn mean as used in the poem? Again, we've got option B as the best option there. Question 14, what is the meaning of the word smear in the context of the poem? So to spread quickly, to blend or blur, to remove completely, or to brighten suddenly. Now, smear, if you think about a paintbrush and you're smearing it across like other, or smearing it across a painting, right? You're basically blending or blurring something together. These ones don't match very well. Again, you're left with two options that are quite similar, spread quickly or blend or blur. So it's about knowing what the word means. Also, in the context, you can have a look about like what is happening to the color of the sky. Is it spreading quickly, or is it probably blending in and blurring into a dark black night, right? And I'd say B works best there. Okay, question 15, identify and explain the simile used in the description of the waves in the poem. Okay, so silently creep until they are no more. It compares waves to creeping animals. Unlike the entrance of the great mighty Thor, it compares waves to Thor's entrance. Slowly and smoothly as far as the eye can see, and until there are no more. It compares waves to disappearing objects. So again, you can see none of these are actually mentioned, right? Disappearing objects, smooth road, or creeping animals, these aren't actually mentioned. So these aren't actually similes, although they could have been made into similes. Only B is a simile because it actually does compare it to the entrance of mighty Thor, right? Even though it says unlike, it's still a comparison, which makes it a simile. Okay, what type of figurative language is used in the line? The sky begins, or the sky's color begins to smear. Okay, so this one isn't a simile because it doesn't say like or as. It's not hyperbole. There's no form of exaggeration there. And I wouldn't say it's personification because we're not giving any human-like characteristics to it. Metaphor probably is the best one here. As the sky's color isn't actually smearing, but it appears like it's smearing or someone is smearing it, right? And B would be the best option there. Again, personification wouldn't make sense unless it were to say that the sky was smearing something else, right? Humans, you couldn't sort of say a human's color was beginning to smear. That wouldn't make sense, right? So option B is the best one there. Okay, that is the end of this poem.